Welcome to the video tutorials of mechanisms by Mechanismuller. This valve is almost identical to 5-port 4-way air-to-air valve with a minor difference. It is called 5-port 4-way air-to-spring valve. The difference, which is air-to-spring, be minor, but it makes the valve we are going to describe more suitable to some application than air-to-air valve. I apologize from my regular followers for the repetition of some comments I used from my previous video. I called the valve I am going to describe as 5-port, 4-way, air-to-spring operated valve. It is called like this because there are 5 ports that can be used to make connections. The valve shown here has 1 port connected to the pressure source, 2 ports connected to the cylinder, and 2 ports are reserved for exhaust. These ports are named as follows. Port P is connected to pressure source. Ports A and B are connected to the air cylinder. And finally, R and S ports are connected to the atmosphere. Also, the connections are shown on the valve symbol here on the right. It is also called a 4-way valve because the spool of this valve has 2 positions, and at each position, the flow has 2 ways to go, hence the name 4-way valve. On the animation and the symbol, the pressurized air is shown with red while the atmospheric pressure is shown in blue. Why is it also called air-to-spring? The position of the spool is controlled by pilot air on the left and a spring on the right. For this reason, I called it air-to-spring valve. The symbol changes positions to emulate the motion of the spool. Please note that we have 1 valve at the left side of the main valve. I call this valve as 3-port, 2-way, force-to-spring valve. While 3 ports and 2 ways description will be obvious based on our previous description, the force-to-spring term needs an explanation. It means that we can actuate the valve by force. By pushing the button on the valve, it returns its previous condition by spring when the power effect is removed from the button. The force condition on this valve is emulated in this animation by the mouse clicking on the valve. The mouse release action emulates the force removed from the valve button. This will cause the valve to return to its normally closed position by the spring action. Let's investigate the operation of the main flow valve. Initially, the spool of the main valve is located on the left and the piston is in the retracted position. This is the biased position of this valve, since the spring at the right side of the main valve forces the spool to the left. However, pushing the small valve button will force the spool of the main valve to move towards the right, due to pressurized air applied to the left pilot port. This pressurized air will overcome the spring force and the spool will move to the right position. This will cause the piston to extend. When we release the button on the small valve, this will release pressurized air to escape to the atmosphere from the left pilot port. This will cause the right spring to extend and push the spool to the left since there is no opposing force to the spring force. The imbalance between right and left sides of the main valve spool will force the spool to move leftward, and as a result, the piston will retract. This valve has many applications in the pneumatic circuits, and I hope this video has made the inner working of this valve a little clearer. One of the main applications of this valve could be the control of a pneumatic press. When the actuation of press is done by a foot-operated 5-port, 4-way, air-to-spring valve, retraction of the press will be achieved just removing the foot from the pedal. Thank you for taking the time to watch our video. If you enjoyed this video and found it to be useful, please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. We appreciate your support.